I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. I'm not someone who scares easily. I grew up watching every horror movie I could get my hands on, laughing at the jump scares, rolling my eyes at the stupid decisions characters made. I always thought I'd be different. I'd be smarter. I'd see the signs. I was wrong. 3 months ago, I found my roommate standing over my bed at 3:47 in the morning, holding a knife. That's not even the worst part. The worst part is what I found out he'd been doing for the 6 weeks before that night. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Jake, and I'm a 26-year-old graphic designer working remotely in Austin, Texas. After a bad breakup last spring, I needed to find a cheaper place fast. My ex and I had been splitting a nice 2-bedroom downtown, but there was no way I could afford it alone. I posted on every roommate finding site I could think of, getting increasingly desperate as my move-out date approached. That's when Marcus responded. His message was short, professional. He had a 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood near Mueller. Was looking for someone clean, quiet, respectful. The rent was almost too good to be true. $650 a month, including utilities. The house itself was older, built in the 70s, but the photos looked decent enough. Hardwood floors, a small backyard, a garage. I worked nights, Marcus wrote, so I sleep during the day. As long as you can be quiet in the mornings, we should get along great. Perfect, I thought. I worked from home during normal hours, so our schedules wouldn't even overlap much. I scheduled a viewing for that Saturday. Marcus was ordinary. That's the word I keep coming back to. Average height, average build, sandy brown hair, starting to thin on top. He was maybe 35, with a soft handshake and a quiet voice. He wore glasses with thick black frames and a faded University of Texas t-shirt. When he smiled, it didn't quite reach his eyes, but I chalked that up to him being tired. He mentioned he'd just gotten off his shift at Dell's data center. I keep weird hours, he explained as he showed me around. Usually head in around 9 p.m. Get home around 7 a.m. I'll crash until 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Then I'm up until my shift starts again. The house was clean, almost sterile. In the living room, a worn leather couch faced a TV mounted on the wall. No pictures hung anywhere, no plants, no personality. The kitchen was spotless. I couldn't see a single dish in the sink or crumb on the counter. Sorry, it's a bit sparse, Marcus said, catching me looking around. I'm not here much, you know. Work and sleep. That's pretty much it. He showed me what would be my bedroom decent size. Carpet that had seen better days but was clean. A closet with sliding doors that stuck slightly. The 3rd bedroom, he explained, was his home office where he sometimes worked on side projects. That one's off limits, he said, and something in his tone made me glance at him. He was staring at me, waiting for confirmation. I keep expensive equipment in there. Can't risk anything getting damaged. Of course, man, no problem. The bathroom we'd share was as clinical as the rest of the house. White tiles, white walls, a shower curtain with blue geometric patterns. Everything smelled faintly of bleach. I should have paid more attention to that smell. So what do you think? Marcus asked as we stood in the living room again. Want to move in? I hesitated for just a second. Something felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on what. The house was too quiet, maybe, even for a Saturday afternoon. I hadn't heard a single neighbor, no cars driving by, nothing. Then again, wasn't that what I wanted? Peace and quiet after the drama of my breakup. Yeah, I said. This works for me. When can I move in? Marcus's smile widened. How about next weekend? We shook on it. His hand was cold. I remember that. Really cold. Like he'd been holding ice. The first week was fine. Great even. Marcus was true to his word about working nights. I'd hear his car pull out around 8:45 p.m. and I wouldn't hear it return until I was already awake and working the next morning. We'd exchange brief nods in the kitchen as he made coffee and I ate breakfast, but that was about it. He'd shuffle off to his bedroom by 7:30 a.m. and I wouldn't see him again until the cycle repeated. Perfect roommate situation, right? The second week is when I started noticing small things. Things I told myself didn't matter. Things I rationalized away. But they added up. I work late sometimes, usually until 11 or midnight when I'm on a deadline. One Thursday night, I was wrapping up around 11:30 when I realized I was hungry. I headed to the kitchen. My laptop still open on the couch behind me, the only light in the house coming from its screen. That's when I noticed Marcus's door was open. Just a crack, maybe 2 inches. He always closed it completely. Always. The few times I'd seen him go to bed, he'd pull that door shut with a firm click that I could hear from my room. I stood in the kitchen, a growing unease creeping up my spine, staring at that thin line of darkness. Marcus, I called out softly. No answer. I checked the driveway through the kitchen window. His car was gone. He was at work. So why was his door open? Maybe he forgot to close it all the way, I thought. Simple explanation. I walked over and pulled it shut, hearing that familiar click. The doorknob was ice cold under my palm. The next morning, Friday, I got up early for a video call with a client on the East Coast. It was 6:45 a.m. and Marcus wasn't home yet. That was unusual. He was always back by 7 at the latest. I made coffee and set up my laptop at the kitchen table. He came in at 7:23 a.m. I know the exact time because I glanced at the clock when I heard his key in the lock. But here's the thing, I never heard his car pull up. 1 second the house was silent. The next he was unlocking the front door. Morning, he said, not looking at me as he headed straight for his bedroom. His shoes were muddy, I noticed. There were small clumps of dirt falling off them onto the hardwood floor as he walked. Morning, I replied, but he was already closing his door. Not his bedroom door, the office door. He went into the office first. I heard him in there for maybe 10 minutes, moving things around, the scrape of furniture on the floor. Then his bedroom door opened and closed, and the house fell silent again, except for one thing. From my spot at the kitchen table, I could see down the hallway to where both his bedroom and office doors were located. I'd watched him close his bedroom door, but now, looking down that hallway, I could swear I saw a faint glow coming from underneath the office door. A soft, bluish light, like a computer screen. I stared at it for a full minute, my coffee growing cold in my hands. The light didn't waver, didn't change. Finally, I convinced myself it was just sunlight hitting the door at a weird angle. I turned back to my laptop and tried to focus on work, but I kept glancing down that hallway, and that light never went away. That weekend, Marcus didn't leave the house at all. His schedule was usually consistent Saturday and Sunday nights, same as weekdays, but this weekend his car stayed in the driveway. I heard him moving around at odd hours, water running in the middle of the night, his bedroom door opening and closing. On Sunday evening, I knocked on his door around 6. I was heading out to grab dinner with some friends and wanted to ask if he needed anything from the store. He answered after a long pause, opening the door just wide enough to show his face. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, his skin pale and almost gray. His hair was greasy, sticking up at odd angles. "Hey man," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "You okay? You look pretty rough." "Sick," he mumbled. "Stomach bug. Called in to work." "Oh damn. You need anything? Medicine? Soup?" "No. Just need sleep." He started to close the door. "Marcus, wait." He paused, and for just a second, I saw something in his eyes. Something cold and evaluating, like he was sizing me up. "What?" "Nothing. Just feel better. Okay." The door clicked shut in my face. I stood there for a moment, my skin prickling with an emotion I couldn't quite name. Then I shook it off and left to meet my friends. When I got home around 11, Marcus's bedroom door was open again. Wide open this time, the room dark inside. His car was gone. I thought he was sick, I remember thinking. But clearly, he'd gone somewhere. I should have left it alone. I should have gone to my room and minded my own business. But something made me walk to his doorway and peer inside. The room was almost empty. A mattress on the floor with tangled sheets. A small dresser, a lamp. That was it. No posters, no decorations, nothing personal at all. It looked like a room someone was squatting in temporarily, not somewhere someone actually lived. But that's not what made my breath catch. On the wall, opposite his mattress, level with where his head would be when he lay down, there were marks, dozens of them, small, dark smudges arranged in groups of 5, the way prisoners mark days on cell walls. 4 vertical lines with a 5th crossing diagonally through them. I counted quickly. 42 marks. 8 weeks and 2 days. How long had Marcus lived here? I'd never thought to ask. The house was his. He mentioned owning it during my first visit. But suddenly I wondered if he'd just bought it. If he'd just moved in recently. I backed away from his doorway and retreated to my room, locking my door behind me. It was the first time I'd locked it since moving in. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound seemed amplified. The house settling, wind in the trees outside, my own breathing. Around 2 a.m., I heard Marcus's car return. His footsteps in the hallway. The sound of his office door opening. Then, faintly, I heard something else, clicking, rhythmic and steady, like someone typing on a keyboard. It went on for hours, long after I finally drifted off. The next week, I started paying closer attention. I couldn't help it. Once you notice something is off, you can't unnotice it. Marcus's schedule had shifted. He was leaving earlier now, around 7 p.m. instead of 9, and he was coming home later, sometimes not until 9 or 10 in the morning. When I'd see him, he'd barely acknowledge me, just shuffle past to his office or bedroom. The smell in the house changed too. That bleach scent was still there, stronger now, but underneath it was something else, something organic and slightly sweet. Like meat just starting to turn. On Wednesday, I was working in the living room when I heard a crash from Marcus's office. A loud bang, like something heavy falling over, followed by what sounded like muffled cursing. "You okay in there?" I called out. The sound stopped immediately. Complete silence for maybe 30 seconds. Then, fine, dropped something. His voice was strange, strained, like he was speaking through clenched teeth. Thursday afternoon, while Marcus was supposedly sleeping, I was in the kitchen making lunch when I heard it. A voice coming from his office. Not his voice, someone else's. A woman's voice, high and frightened. "Please," she was saying. "Please, I won't tell anyone. Just let me." The voice cut off abruptly, replaced by silence, so complete it felt like pressure in my ears. I stood frozen at the kitchen counter, a knife in my hand for the sandwich I'd been making, my heart hammering against my ribs. Had I really heard that? Was Marcus watching a movie? But he was supposed to be asleep, and I hadn't heard a TV turn on. I set down the knife and crept toward the hallway. Both Marcus's bedroom and office doors were closed. No light underneath either one. No sound at all. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe I'd been watching too much true crime on YouTube lately, getting paranoid about nothing. I went back to making my sandwich, but I'd lost my appetite. That night, Marcus left for work at his usual new time, 7 p.m. I watched from my bedroom window as his car backed out of the driveway and disappeared down the street. Then I waited. I waited until 7:30 to make sure he wasn't coming back for something he'd forgotten. Then I walked down the hallway and stood in front of his office door. My hand hovered over the doorknob. This was wrong. I knew it was wrong. This was a massive invasion of privacy, breaking the one rule Marcus had clearly stated. But that voice I'd heard or thought I'd heard kept echoing in my head. "Please, please, I won't tell anyone." I turned the knob. Locked. Of course it was locked. What had I expected? I went to the kitchen and rummaged through the junk drawer where I'd dethroned various odds and ends when I moved in. In the back, I found what I was looking for, a thin Allen wrench from an IKEA bookshelf I'd assembled. It took me 20 minutes of fumbling, my hands shaking, before I heard the click of the lock disengaging. I turned the knob and pushed the door open. The smell hit me first. That same bleach-Andra combination, so much stronger here that I had to cover my nose and mouth with my shirt. The room was dark, but enough light spilled in from the hallway that I could make out shapes. Against a far wall, a desk with 3 computer monitors, all of them off. Next to the desk, a filing cabinet. In the corner, a tall wardrobe with its doors slightly ajar. I stepped inside, reaching for the light switch. The fluorescent overhead lights flickered on, and I immediately saw what was in the wardrobe. Cameras, 6 of them, different sizes and models, all on the top shelf. Below them, neatly coiled cables and cords. And on the bottom of the wardrobe, stacked in 2 piles, were hard drives. External hard drives in black cases, at least 20 of them. Each one had a label, a piece of white tape with a name written in careful block letters: Jessica and Amanda and Christine Brittany. And at the top of one stack, Jake. My vision tunneled. The room seemed to tilt around me. Those were women's names. 4 women's names, and then mine. Each name on its own hard drive, which meant each of us had our own collection of videos, photos. With shaking hands, I pulled out the hard drive labeled with my name. It was heavier than I expected. I set it on the desk and turned on the computer. It took forever to boot up. Every second felt like an hour. I kept glancing at the door, terrified I'd hear Marcus's car pulling up outside. But the house stayed silent. Finally, the desktop appeared. I plugged in the hard drive and opened it. Folders. Dozens of folders, each one labeled with a date. The first was from 2 days after I'd moved in. I clicked on it. Videos. The folder was full of video files. I clicked on the first one and immediately wished I hadn't. It was me, sleeping. The camera angle was from above, looking down at my bed, and I was asleep on my side, my face clearly visible in what looked like infrared night vision. The timestamp in the corner read 2:34 a.m. I clicked on another video. Same thing. Me sleeping. Different position. Different night. Another video. This one was different. I was awake, sitting at my desk, working. But I was in my bedroom, with the door closed. There was no window behind me that someone could have filmed through. The angle suggested the camera was mounted up high in the corner of the room. Inside my room, my mouth went dry. I opened more folders, clicking through video after video. Me sleeping, me working, me changing clothes, me doing literally everything I did in the privacy of my bedroom. There was a camera hidden somewhere in my room, and Marcus had been recording me since the day I moved in. I opened older folders, the ones labeled with women's names, knowing I shouldn't, but unable to stop myself. Jessica's folder was first. Videos of a young woman with dark hair, sleeping, working on a laptop, crying on the phone. The dates went back 8 months. The last video was from 6 months ago, her moving boxes out of a room I recognized as mine. Amanda's folder. A redhead, pretty, probably mid-20s. 7 months of footage ending 5 months ago. Christine's folder. Blonde, maybe 30. 6 months of videos ending 4 months ago. Brittany's folder. Brunette with glasses. 5 months of videos ending 3 months ago. For previous roommates. For women who'd lived here before me. All of them recorded without their knowledge. All of them in the exact same room I was now sleeping in. And now me. The first male roommate. I was going to be sick. I minimized the window and was about to yank out the hard drive when I saw another folder on the desktop. This one wasn't labeled with a name. It was just called Projects. I clicked on it. More subfolders, but these had different labels. Numbers. Police case numbers. Maybe. I opened one at random. Inside were news articles. Screenshots of news articles. Actually, saved as image files. I clicked on the first one, and my blood turned to ice. Local woman missing after leaving work. The headline read, the article was from 6 months ago, from a San Antonio newspaper. The woman's photo showed a young brunette with glasses. Brittany. I clicked through more files. More articles. Search continues for missing woman. Police have no leads in disappearance. Family pleads for information. I backed out and opened another subfolder. Christine articles about her disappearance 4 months ago. Last seen leaving her apartment in Austin. No signs of struggle. Car found abandoned near the Greenbelt. Another folder. Amanda reported missing 5 months ago. Another. Jessica missing 6 months ago after leaving work late one night. For women. For previous roommates. All of them reported missing. All of them within days of moving out. The room spun around me. I gripped the edge of the desk, trying to breathe, trying to think. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. Maybe Marcus was just obsessed with true crime. Maybe he'd lived in places where these women had lived and he was following their cases. Maybe I was making excuses for him. Some part of my brain was still trying to rationalize this away, to find an innocent explanation. But there wasn't one. Marcus wasn't just recording his roommates. He was doing something to them after they left. Or maybe they weren't really leaving at all. I yanked the hard drive out of the computer and shoved it back into the wardrobe, exactly where I'd found it. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I turned off the computer, turned off the lights, backed out of the room and pulled the door shut. Then I ran to my bedroom and grabbed my phone. I should have called 911 right then. That's what you're thinking, right? That's what any reasonable person would do. But I wasn't thinking clearly. I was panicking, my thoughts racing in circles. What if I was wrong? What if there was an explanation? What if I called the police and it turned out Marcus was innocent and I'd just broken into his office and invaded his privacy based on paranoid assumptions? What if I called the police and they didn't believe me? What if they couldn't get a warrant based on what I'd seen? What if Marcus found out I'd been in his office and he what? What did I think he was going to do? I knew what he was going to do. Some part of me, deep down, knew exactly what he was capable of. I needed evidence. Something concrete I could take to the police. I pulled out my laptop and started researching the missing women, searching for the articles Marcus had saved. They were all real, every single one. For women, all in their 20s or 30s, all reported missing in the past 6 months. The most recent, Brittany, had disappeared 13 weeks ago, 3 weeks before I moved in. I looked up Marcus's full name on the lease agreement I'd signed. Marcus Anthony Chen. I found his Facebook profile. Barely used, just a profile picture and some basic info. According to his page, he'd lived in Austin for 2 years. 2 years. So he'd owned this house for 2 years, and 4 women had gone missing in the past 6 months. I searched for more missing persons cases in the Austin area. There were others, going back further, but none that matched a timeline or profile as clearly as these 4. 4 in 6 months. I kept thinking, every 6 to 8 weeks, like clockwork, a roommate would disappear shortly after moving out. But I was still here. I'd been here for 7 weeks. Did that mean I was safe until I decided to move? Or did it mean I was already overdue? Those marks on his bedroom wall, 42 of them, 8 weeks and 2 days. Tomorrow would be day 43. I sat on my bed, my phone in my hand, trying to decide what to do. Call the police, pack a bag, and leave right now. Confront Marcus. No, not that last one. Never that. I was still debating when I heard it. The sound of a car door closing outside. I looked at my phone. 8:47 p.m. Marcus shouldn't be home for hours. I crept to my window and peered out through the blinds. His car was in the driveway. I'd been so absorbed in my research that I hadn't heard him pull up. Terror, real and primal, flooded through me. He'd come home early. Why did he know I'd been in his office? Had I left something out of place? I heard the front door open and close. Footsteps in the living room, then silence. Was he listening? Trying to figure out if I was home. My car was parked on the street. He'd know I was here. I held my breath, pressing myself against the wall next to my window, trying to hear what he was doing. More footsteps, moving down the hallway, toward the office. The office door opened, closed, then muffled through the walls. I heard his voice. He was on the phone. Yeah, I know. No, I'm telling you, I'm handling it tonight because the schedule's already off and I can't risk. His voice dropped too low for me to make out the rest. I looked around my room with fresh eyes, searching for the camera. It had to be somewhere with a good angle, somewhere high up that could see most of the room. My eyes landed on the smoke detector in the corner near the ceiling. Slowly, carefully, I climbed onto my desk chair and examined the smoke detector. It looked normal at first glance, but when I looked closer, I saw it. A tiny lens, barely visible, embedded in the plastic grill. He was watching me right now. Or at least, he could watch the recording later. I climbed down from the chair, my mind racing. I had to act normal. I couldn't let him know I knew. I changed into pajamas, moving naturally, trying not to look at the smoke detector. I got into bed and turned off the lights. Then I lay there in the darkness, my phone clutched under my pillow, listening to the sounds of the house. Marcus was still in his office. I could hear the faint clicking of his keyboard, occasional movement. An hour passed. Then I couldn't fall asleep. How could I? But I tried to breathe slowly and evenly, to look like I was sleeping. If he checked the camera feed. Around midnight, I heard his office door open, footsteps in the hallway. They stopped outside my bedroom door. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing steady, terror screaming through every nerve in my body. The doorknob turned slowly. The door creaked open a few inches. I could feel him watching me, standing there in my doorway, looking at me. How long had he been doing this? Had he come into my room every night while I slept? After what felt like an eternity, the door closed again. His footsteps retreated. I heard his bedroom door close. I waited another hour, counting the seconds, before I dared to move. Then, slowly, I pulled out my phone under the covers and texted my friend Derek. Need to crash at your place tomorrow night. Having issues with roommate. We'll explain later. His response came a few minutes later. Sure, man. Everything okay? Will be. Thanks. I'd leave tomorrow while Marcus was asleep. Pack a bag. Get out. Go to Derek's place. And then figure out what to do next. Call the police from safety. Show them what I'd found. Let them handle it. I just had to survive one more night. But I didn't fall asleep. I lay there, watching the darkness, listening to every sound. And around 3 in the morning, I heard his bedroom door open again. Footsteps in the hallway. The sound of the front door opening. His car started. I heard it back out of the driveway and drive away. Where was he going at 3 in the morning? I should have stayed in my room. I should have just waited until morning. But something drew me out of bed, pulled me into the hallway. The house was dark, except for a faint glow coming from under the office door. He'd left it unlocked. I pushed it open. The computer was still on, all 3 monitors glowing in the darkness. The middle one showed a grid of video feeds, live camera feeds. My room, empty now, showing my unmade bed. But that wasn't all. There were 5 other feeds, 5 other rooms, 5 other people sleeping in their beds, completely unaware they were being watched. Marcus had other houses, other properties, other roommates. This wasn't just about the women who'd lived here. This was bigger, much bigger. I stared at the screens, feeling nausea rise in my throat. How many people was he watching? How many cameras had he hidden? How many others were like me, thinking they'd found a great deal on rent, thinking they were safe? Movement on one of the screens caught my attention. One of the feeds showed a young woman sitting up in bed, looking around like she'd heard something. She got up and walked toward her door, then stopped, listened. After a moment, she went back to bed. I recognized that behavior. I'd done the same thing countless times in the past week. waking up to strange sounds, convinced someone was in the house with me, trying to rationalize it away. She was scared. They were probably all scared, living with that constant unease, that sense of being watched, not knowing why they felt that way. I had to do something, not tomorrow. Now, I pulled out my phone and called 911. 911. What's your emergency? My roommate. My voice came out as a whisper. I cleared my throat and tried again. My roommate has been recording me without my consent, and I think he's connected to several missing persons cases. Sir, what's your location? I gave them the address, talking quickly, explaining what I'd found. The cameras, the hard drives, the missing women. The operator kept asking me questions, keeping me on the line, telling me officers were on their way. Where is the individual now, sir? He left. He drove away about 15 minutes ago. I don't know where. And you're alone in the residence? Yes, headlights swept across the office window. A car pulling into the driveway. He's back, I whispered. He just came back. Sir, I need you to get to a safe location. Lock yourself in a room with a way out. Officers are approximately 4 minutes away. I ran from my bedroom, but I could already hear the front door opening. I ducked into the bathroom instead, locking the door behind me. It was a flimsy lock, the kind that could be opened with a butter knife, but it was something. Hello, Marcus's voice called out. Jake, you awake? I didn't answer. I stood in the dark bathroom, my phone still connected to 911, barely breathing. I know you're up, he said. His voice was closer now, right outside the bathroom door. I saw your texts. You really shouldn't have snooped, Jake. How did he see my texts? My phone. Had he somehow... The computer. The cameras weren't just in the smoke detector. My laptop, my phone. He'd had access to everything the whole time. The police are coming, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. They're already on their way. Silence. Then, I know. That's why I came back. The doorknob rattled. Once, twice. Thing is, Jake, I wasn't planning on keeping you anyway. You were going to be moving out soon, right? I saw those apartment listings you were looking at. You were already planning to leave. I backed away from the door, pressing myself against the far wall. The bathroom window was small, too small to climb through. I was trapped. You were supposed to move out first, Marcus continued, his voice calm, conversational. That's how it works. They move out, I help them pack, and then, well, accidents happen. People go missing. But now you've complicated things. A metallic click. He'd picked the lock. The door swung open, and Marcus stood there, backlit by the hallway light. In his hand was a knife, long, sharp, the same knife I'd seen in his bedroom the night I found the marks on his wall only. I had unseen it that night. That was later. I'm sorry, it has to be this way, he said. I actually liked you, Jake. You were quiet, respectful, way better than some of the others. He took a step into the bathroom. That's when I heard the sirens. Marcus heard them too. His head snapped toward the sound, and for just a second, his attention wavered. I lunged forward, shoving past him with every ounce of strength I had. He grabbed for me, but I was already moving, running down the hallway toward the front door. I heard him behind me, his footsteps, a grunt of anger. My hand closed on the doorknob, just as his hand closed on my shirt. I yanked the door open and practically fell out onto the front porch. Red and blue lights filled the street. 2 police cruisers were pulling up to the curb. I ran toward them, gasping, Marcus right behind me, until he stopped. Just stopped at the edge of the driveway, the knife still in his hand, visible in the flashing lights. For a moment, he just stood there, looking at me. Then, at the police. Then he turned and ran back into the house. The next few minutes were chaos. Officers yelling, surrounding the house, calling for Marcus to come out. I sat in the back of one of the cruisers, shaking, trying to answer questions, trying to explain. More police arrived. I told them about the office, the computers, the cameras, the hard drives. They found all of it. Everything I'd seen, and more. Marcus had locked himself in his bedroom, and it took them 20 minutes to get the door open. When they did, they found him sitting on his mattress, staring at the marks on the wall. He didn't resist, didn't say anything, just let them handcuff him and lead him away. That was 3 months ago. I found out later, through news reports and the detective assigned to the case, just how bad it was. Marcus had 6 properties across Austin and San Antonio. 6 houses, all set up the same way. Young professionals, mostly women, renting rooms at below market rates, all of them being recorded 24 hours a day. The 4 women, whose hard drives I'd found their bodies, all of them buried in different locations around the hill country. The evidence trail Marcus had left was meticulous, almost like he wanted to remember every detail. There were more victims there, still identifying. Marcus had been doing this for at least 3 years, possibly longer. He'd rotate between properties, never staying in one place too long, always moving to a new city before starting over. And the other people I'd seen on those monitors, they were real. They called every one of them. One woman had just moved in 2 weeks before. She'd been feeling uneasy, but couldn't figure out why. Another was planning to move out at the end of the month. They got to her just in time. As for why he kept me alive longer than the others, the investigator had a theory. Marcus preferred women. The thrill for him wasn't just to surveillance and control it, was what came after. I was an experiment, a deviation from his pattern. He was curious if he could make it work with a man. The detective said I was lucky, that if I'd confronted Marcus any earlier, or if I'd waited any longer to call, I'd probably be dead. There was apparently a very narrow window where he'd gotten complacent enough to make mistakes, but hadn't yet decided to act. I don't feel lucky. I moved back in with my parents for a while. I couldn't sleep in an apartment alone. Couldn't close my eyes without seeing Marcus standing in that doorway, backlit, holding that knife. Couldn't relax without checking every smoke detector, every corner, every shadow for hidden cameras. I'm in therapy now. PTSD, the therapist says. It's getting better, slowly. I have my own place again, a studio with windows I can see out of, no roommates. I check it for cameras once a week, even though I know it's irrational. Marcus is awaiting trial. His lawyers are arguing he's not competent to stand trial, that he's had a psychotic break. I don't care what they argue. I know what I saw. I know what he is. The house is still there, sitting empty. They haven't found a buyer, yet can't imagine why. Sometimes I drive past it, late at night when I can't sleep. I don't know why I do it. Maybe I'm trying to prove to myself that it's really over. That I survived. That it's just a house now, not a trap. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. The thing I haven't told the police or my therapist or anyone. 3 weeks ago, I got a letter. No return address. postmarked from the county jail where Marcus is being held. Inside was a single piece of paper with a website URL written on it. Nothing else. I haven't visited the site. I won't, but I can guess what's on it. Somewhere out there, there are videos of me, of those women, of everyone Marcus recorded, and if he put them online, if he shared them before he was arrested, they're still out there, still being watched. I check my door locks 5 times before bed. I cover my laptop camera with tape. I never, ever rent a room from someone I don't know anymore. And sometimes, when I'm trying to fall asleep, I think about all the people out there who have that same vague feeling I had. That sense of being watched, that creeping unease they can't quite explain. I hope they trust that feeling. I hope they get out, because there are more people like Marcus out there. More houses with cameras hidden in smoke detectors and air vents. More roommates who are just a little too quiet, a little too interested in your schedule, a little too good to be true. If you're reading this and you feel that prickle on the back of your neck, that sense that something's not quite right, trust it. Don't make my mistake. Don't rationalize it away. And for God's sake, check your smoke detectors.